Welcome to Paulogia and another edition of Ham and Egg News, where we react to Ken Ham reacting to things.
I think this is the first time that all three of us have done this together.
In quite a while.
And so it's been a while since we've been together. But if you're new to the channel, or would just like to be notified when there are new Paulogia videos on science, theology, news, and the claims of Christians, please tap on the subscribe button.
This is the A team. The B and the C and the D teams. They'll be here on other days.
Yeah.
Ken is the master in motivation. I can't tell if it says world's greatest boss on his mug, but I'm just going to assume that it does.
Those people getting on here, Montgomery, Alabama, Nova Scotia. Wow, that's way up there.
Nova Scotia? That must be Shannon Q watching again.
Hell yeah, I am.
There's been a lot of fake news. And a lot of fake news about Answers in Genesis, the Creation Museum, and the Ark Encounter. The secular media have been publishing fake news about us for years and years and years and years. And they did it again.
A life-size replica of Noah's Ark are going to court over rain damage. Ark Encounter is suing its insurers over damage worth about $1 million caused by heavy rains in the 2017 and 2018. The Northern Kentucky company reported the damage was on an access road, but not the vessel itself. The lawsuit claims the insurers refused to pay for the repairs, and Ark Encounter claims that racked up additional expenses for the business. The road damage has already been fixed.
The only way to deal with the insurance company is to lodge a lawsuit, which we did. And the headlines in the newspaper, well, some of them said, owners of Ark sue for rain damage. Well, there was no rain damage at the Ark.
Which is why this headline doesn't say that an Ark replica was damaged by the flood. It says, completely accurately, that the owners of an Ark are suing for rain damage. In the first paragraph of the article, it says, though the Ark itself weathered the storm, the rainfall caused a significant landslide on the property, which undermined an access road leading to the massive wooden vessel. Vessel might be a bit of a stretch, it's really a boat-shaped building. So the article specifically and immediately says that the Ark itself wasn't damaged. Why is Ken upset? Because the entire article wasn't in the headline?
And this one, flood damage at Noah's Ark attraction in Kentucky, and most of them said flood damage.
I mean, you can't really fault the headline writers, who are often different people than the article writers, for thinking that the interest in this story was primarily around the irony that your attraction about the world's biggest rainfall has been negatively affected by rainfall. I mean, if it came out that Disneyland were suing some exterminators for not being able to get rid of mice, the headline jokes would definitely be related to Mickey and Minnie Mouse. I mean, you can be upset that in the pursuit of irony that the press went into factual inaccuracies, but did they? Let's see. The 510-foot wooden ship, which is built on bedrock, appears to have emerged unscathed from the rainfall. Okay, that's clear and true. Then they've got the exact quote from the Answers in Genesis lawsuit. Subsequent to heavy rains, a significant landslide occurred along portions of the slope, which eliminated the structural support for the roadway, caused significant damage to the road surface itself and the incorporated improvements, and rendered portions of the road unsafe and unfit to use. They quoted your lawyer's words, so you can't think that is fake news. It sounds like your quibble is with the word flood. So let's take a look at how flood is defined by the National Flood Insurance Program. Partial or complete inundation of 2 or more acres of normally dry land area from mud flow. You describe a landslide following heavy rains, which kinda sounds like mud flow to me. Maybe you don't want to call that a flood, but it at least seems like a reasonable verb given the context of flood insurance. And this is interesting. The insurers denied liability, claiming the damage was due in part to design deficiencies and faulty workmanship. Sounds like that's on you, Ken.
But I want to show you the consequence of fake news. So this is from the Albany Democrat Herald, which has a number of newspapers, I believe, across America. And this person wrote a letter to the editor.
Whoa. You've been complaining about how international media has been covering your insurance lawsuit, showing just the headlines, and the in-depth reading you're going to do is not one of the articles in question, but rather a random letter to the editor, to a purely local newspaper of a town of just 50,000 people?
Every time there's something totally false, can one of you, do the buzzer sound?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. One small example is the Ark amusement park. It's not an amusement park.
True. The Ark Encounter provides no amusement.
In Tennessee, it's not in Tennessee. It's actually in Kentucky.
Sorry, Tennessee. Or sorry, Kentucky. Or both.
Which used state funds. There were no state funds used to build it. It was all private funds, all donations.
This is one of Ken's favorite subtle distinctions without much of a difference that he likes to make. But he's not technically wrong. What the Ark Encounter applied for, and received, was an $18 million sales tax rebate from the state. Meaning that $18 million that a normal business would have to pay to the state in sales tax, the Ark Encounter won't pay. Ultimately, the state is out $18 million, and the Ark will have $18 million extra dollars in their pocket. But Ken is right on a technicality. No dollars changed hands here.
To build a Bible-themed religious amusement park. Okay, so you're all getting it. You're getting it. It was going bankrupt. Going bankrupt? A flood, bankrupt. Yeah, anyway, okay, all right.
The letter writer isn't confusing your insurance lawsuit with his narrative. In fact, it looks like he wrote this on May 19th, which was several days before you even filed your lawsuit. And no, as far as I've investigated, the Ark Encounter is not going bankrupt. Though why it is not is a mystery to me. I suspect that it continues to be held up financially by donations rather than from the gate admissions collected.
Rather than going into bankruptcy, it was sold to private investors for $10.
Back in the summer of 2017, the Ark Encounter sold itself not to private investors, but rather to a non-profit organization established by Answers in Genesis called Crosswater Canyon.
To avoid paying taxes.
This move absolutely was an attempt to avoid paying taxes, though not state taxes. Grant County, where the Ark is located, passed a law requiring a 50-cent per ticket charge be collected to go toward the expanded fire and medical staff and equipment needed to service the various attractions in the area. Makes sense, but upon selling to Clearwater, Ken declared the Ark to be exempt from this tax due to his new tax-exempt status. But then, the state of Kentucky said that the $18 million tax rebate the Ark was getting wasn't available to nonprofit entities. Since Ken couldn't have his cake and eat it too, and was able to count well enough to figure out that $18 million is a bigger number than 50 cents, the Ark was transferred back again to the for-profit corporation for another $10. It was a mess.
Without having to repay the state.
Since technically the state didn't give the Ark actual cash, then he's technically right to say they're not repaying the state.
I have never seen so many absolutely absurd, fake, false statements in that many lines in a long time.
Congratulations on complaining about national media and then debunking a letter sent in by a random individual in a small town.
A couple weeks ago, Dr. Jennifer Rivera, who is our education specialist here at the museum, and myself decided to attend the American Alliance of Museums National Conference in New Orleans, down in Louisiana. They have information on like exhibit designs and materials to use for exhibits.
Yo, I heard someone say exhibitionist conference?
Oh, for ham's sake, Jimmy. Exhibitor conference. Exhibitor. Put on a shirt, man.
Okay, fine, but I am not putting on pants for Ken Ham.
How to help museums, really reach the community and be, what museums should be, basically. Well, supposedly. That's their goals.
But in reality, it's a bait and switch to make your kids love anime and turn them gay.
Did you all wear green hats?
Well, I didn't. It was very much a party theme. I mean, we are in New Orleans, so granted, but they had a jazz band that led us into the exhibit hall.
Does she think the height of New Orleans is green hats and jazz bands? There's actually something else she doesn't know about. They're called jizz bands. I shouldn't explain on this channel, but that's the height of partying in New Orleans.
Somehow I don't think Georgia was out there collecting beads.
I don't think so.
Every restroom there, whether male or female, had this sign outside.
All are welcome to use a restroom that is right for them. We ask that no one will be stared at, questioned, or asked to leave. Thank you for helping to make restroom spaces at AAM inclusive and accessible for everyone.
I know this isn't the point right now, but I like how Ken decided to use his mouse cursor to emulate the bouncing ball effect.
Yeah. We need to make sure everyone can follow along. I've never understood from the beginning what their obsession with these kinds of things are. There've forever been places that just have a restroom. Now, usually it only had one toilet in there, but we're talking about where people are going to poop. Why does this matter so much to people? I'm sure we're about to find out.
But they're not supposed to be. That's the problem.
Why do they have a whole separate room for restrooms then?
So we already know that Answers in Genesis lacks a very basic understanding of science, but I guess they never got the memo that poo-poo smells bad? I could give an entire course on it, but that's why we have a separate room for the bathroom, because poo-poo smell bad.
As a member of the Answers in Genesis staff, Bodie should remember that there's an entire portion of the Ark Encounter that demonstrates how Noah might have had to handle the waste of thousands of animals with only one opening in the boat.
Was there a separate bathroom for the male lions and the female lions? Or
Good question. It seems like Noah would want to keep the male and female separate in general to avoid producing any new mouths to feed.
Right, no hanky-panky.
I mean, in a year, that boat would be filled with rabbits.
Yeah, that's true. Are rabbits a clean or an unclean?
Well, Leviticus 11:6 specifically says, "The rabbit, though it chews its cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you." So the Bible goes out of its way to specifically call rabbits unclean.
Okay.
But it's funny you brought that up because it's one of those examples where the Bible conflicts with science. Because rabbits absolutely do not chew their cud. Now, Christians, and the answer is in Genesis, get around this by saying that rabbits do rechew their food in one way because they tend to eat their own feces. And I'm totally serious. That is the defense that Answers in Genesis will give. So we're full circle back to pooping.
Perfect.
So the women's restroom line, of course, was really long because all women in here know that's what happens, right? So Jennifer said she noticed like 5 of the women were like, they saw the sign, they're like, we'll just go to the men's. And so they got out of line and went to the men's restroom, not because they identify as men, but because the line, there wasn't a line.
My viewers will know in the past, AIG has tried to frame their entire transgender bathroom outrage as concern over safety. But here, Georgia is admitting that women who don't otherwise feel icky about this feel entirely safe going into the men's room.
I'd like to know the statistics on how much danger there's been in bathrooms of just people going in the wrong one versus how much danger people have been inside of churches, because I feel like the numbers aren't even close. Like what they're just now describing is the same thing you have with traffic. The reason why cops don't pull anybody over on the highway from like 4 to 7 p.m. is because there's the bunch of people that speed. And yeah, they're not supposed to be over there speeding, but traffic would come to a halt if there wasn't at least one lane of assholes. And now in this case, this is calling it a lane of assholes is a little bit funnier, but lightening up the line, I don't think is anybody. Again, we're just talking about where people poop. Bathrooms are not designated hookup zones. They're where people poop. Except in New Orleans.
It's called virtue signaling. They're trying to signal to everyone, hey, look at us, we're with the time. And then on one of the slides, on one of the presentations that Jennifer went to, this was a slide, and under each person's name, they're giving their preferred pronouns, okay? And then you get to this one.
And this one is she, her, his.
They're describing this like they've never seen it before.
Right, and they're acting like, again, this could only be virtue signaling. How about it actually could be a number of people who give a shit, or in the case of bathrooms, don't give a shit. I don't know how many, this is going to be the most times I say poop on the air, but we're talking about where you poop. Fucking back off.
All this is doing is adding one extra line of innocuous information. I don't understand why they even care.
I got to tell you, actually, the first time I sucked dick was after I saw some mixed pronouns on a brochure, so they're onto something.
Wow. Well, greatest fears confirmed then.
I got struck by gay Cupid.
When I've seen this, I've assumed that the first was the preferred third person pronoun, then preferred object pronoun, and then the possessive pronoun. But for Monica, the first 2 are female and the possessive form is male. Have I been misinterpreting these lists? How do I properly address Monica here?
So this is what's fun with people who are gender fluid. You usually can't mess it up. And I'm guessing that Monica is femme-leaning gender fluid because it sounds like Monica accepts any pronoun, whether it's he, she, him, her, his, her. Obviously, the pronoun they actually applies to absolutely everybody. So in reality, they're kind of the nicest people to be around because you don't even accidentally slip up. They'll take anything.
But it wasn't she, he, her, him, her, his for maximal inclusiveness.
Right.
Is Monica trying to signal something specific with this, or?
I think they're trying to broadcast that they do accept all pronouns. However, in the use of basically everybody chose between 3, the fact that she starts with she, her, and then goes to his, I think if that's communicating anything, first of all, it could be communicating nothing. But if it's communicating anything, I think that it is trying to sort of explain to people that their transition has been toward femininity. It may be communicating, I am AMAB or assigned male at birth. I have been transitioning toward a more feminine end of the spectrum. However, with my gender fluidity, you can't get me wrong with pronouns.
And my apologies if that was a stupid question.
Yeah, no. I mean, a lot of people don't know these things, and so it's asking is the best way to go.
And apparently it doesn't matter what pronoun you call them because they're okay with all of them.
It's funny because the presenter we were just listening to was like acting as though it's a problem that this person will take any pronouns, because this is something that I have my own experience with gender fluid people. They kind of enjoy when a bigot then comes to them and tries to purposefully misgender them, and they're like, haha, good try. You can't.
Literally that first day, we just came back to the room and we're just so frustrated because it seemed like that was they're making it the main focus of the conference.
No, you're making it the main focus. You're making it the main focus. And I'm fucking frustrated. Do you think that everybody else that walked through that convention was looking for signs to take pictures of. Because these pictures were taken presumably by her. I'll respect her pronoun because I'm not a bitch. Trying to find something to be offended about because people were being inclusive and respectful. Oh my God, God damn it. People were being inclusive and respectful. Better take pictures so that we can bitch about it and then complain that other people are too sensitive. God, these people piss me off. I'm going to walk away because I'm not even supposed to be talking right now. And I knew this was going to make me mad.
Shannon, if you can allow me to be devil's advocate here, consider all of the times that you have spent hundreds of dollars on a plane, hundreds of dollars on a hotel, hundreds of dollars on entry to a convention. You walked into the convention, collected the program guide for the convention, and then walked out and went home, because we all know that is how you experience a convention. The entire focus of the convention is whatever is in the program, not the thing it actually leads you to. The program itself is the entire convention. So I don't know. This adds up to me. This sounds logical.
Oh, okay. Because when you walk into a convention, the primary consideration isn't the topic of the convention, isn't the displays that you're seeing, isn't the presentations that you're watching, isn't the panels that you're participating in. The primary focus is what pronouns the presenters prefer, and also which bathroom you can use, which in this case isn't an issue, because the fact of the matter is you can use whatever the fuck bathroom you want. That's a win for me. That's Shangri-La as far as I'm concerned.
Shannon, you are completely disregarding all the people who attended that conference and were walking around with a confused look on their face, a pamphlet in their hands, and poopy butts.
You're right. You're right. I should respect those people.
And all it is pushing this
or
agenda.
Apologizing to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, saying, oh, we're sorry for whatever, and we don't want to offend you. And
No, I mean, to me, these seem like the exact same kind of people who years ago, when integration was happening, would have called that apologies and people being too sensitive and things of that nature, when in reality, it sounds like this has been the most casual version of saying, hey, we recognize that other people exist and we'd like them to feel seen. And it in the most subtle ways. I assure you, if people want over the top reminding you trans people exist way too often, they can just go to my channel. This is not that.
And you could pick these little stickers to go on your badge.
Never actually seen this before, have you?
Not the specific one. However, I know trans people who order buttons, basically, that will say like pronouns. They might put it on a hat. They might put it on their shirt. I know people who work in retail who have similar stickers to this, but I haven't seen this specific one. I don't yet see the downfall of society and how this is going to turn my kid gay. But I mean, there's already the problem of I'd have to find my child and stop neglecting them in the first place.
It seems like just a convenient way to communicate useful information.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anybody is forcing anybody to wear them. In fact, I think if you have that option there and you decline, most people will just go with the pronouns you seem to be presenting, whatever your gender presentation is there. Otherwise, it is terribly useful for the people who need it, for the people who want to make sure you know this is what I go by.
They probably thought there might be some people uncomfortable with the stickers, but they likely didn't imagine this one would be so angry that they'd take a photo and make it their lead story on a creationist news show.
Imagine Ken Ham should be extremely happy. He could have it say, my pronouns are you/weren't/there.
It was just like that for the whole conference. So after the first day, we were so frustrated, and we just said, forget this, and we went to the National World War II Museum, which was amazing. Yeah.
She's also presenting what is clearly a false dichotomy here. I used to live in Louisiana in a town called Slidell. It's right across Lake Pontchartrain from New Orleans. I have been to conferences similar to this, conventions similar to this, not this exact one, but I've also been to the World War II Museum that she's talking about. In fact, a picture of my grandfather is in there. We didn't know going into it that he was there. And then we saw a picture of my grandfather and his squad right before they were jumping out of an airplane on D-Day. It was this like huge emotional moment for all of us.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really cool. But this dichotomy, I think she's trying to present it like you can either be a bleeding heart liberal and enjoy this educational conference, or you can go to the World War II Museum and then these would be different people that enjoy this. I like both of them. And I eat meat and I shoot guns. What are you going to do with me? You can't put me in a box, lady.
When you're upset about people virtue signaling, the best way to express you don't like the virtue signaling is to walk out on the virtue signalers, go to a venue that glorifies the virtues you find appealing, then fly home to talk about it on your national news show, where you will receive applause for your not virtue signaling.
There's no irony here.
No irony here.
You know what I hate? Tone policing, and I just wish they would be nicer when I yell at them for it.
Well, imagine if you had a buzzer down at this conference. You'd have been buzzing the whole
my.
time.
I think that's the end of the story.
So basically here we have Ken Ham, a woman named Georgia, and Chuck Todd's evil twin, who apparently is at least in better shape, but still has that unfortunate face, who here don't want to recognize the identity of other individuals, and yet they themselves want to be recognized as a legitimate scientific organization. I don't know. I really think that that's a much bigger stretch than people wanting to be themselves and feeling like themselves and be recognized as themselves.
Indeed. Do you want to stick around for the rest?
Sorry, Paul, I can't. I have a confusing brochure and a poopy butt.
That's all I got.
You know, there's a famous song, "The Devil Went Down to Georgia." I think in this instance, it was Georgia went down to the devil.
I did.
I bet a fiddle of gold against your soul because I think I'm better than you.
Ontario Appeals Court rules Christian doctors must participate in abortion and euthanasia. So this is up in Canada.
My home and native land.
And basically, some Christian doctors had challenged a policy that if you will not perform abortion, you must then refer that person to an abortion-providing doctor.
I'm impressed. That's relatively accurate so far.
And sadly, the appeals court said, no, you still have to follow that
You
policy.
must follow that religion.
What Georgia isn't mentioning here is that the June 2016 guidelines that insist that doctors who refuse to perform normally available medical services on the basis of conscience must at least refer their patient to someone who will, is in and of itself a massive concession to the religious and conscious preferences of the doctor. At the time, the laws and governing boards could easily just have rather forced these doctors to just ignore their conscience and do the procedures anyhow, or they'd have to quit their jobs. In my opinion, allowing people to not fulfill portions of their job responsibilities they don't like is already a generous compromise. If an ethical vegan worked at Burger King, and every time someone ordered something on the menu that contained meat, they were allowed to refuse to take the order as long as they sent the customer to another cashier, that would be a significant compromise.
And it's really sad because what they're really doing is putting the patient's rights above the doctor's rights.
Unlike in the United States, healthcare is considered a right granted to all Canadian citizens. What is not a right in Canada is that anyone who wants to be a doctor just gets to be a doctor by their own rules, which was the court's opinion in this case. Physicians have no right to practice medicine, let alone a constitutionally protected right to do so. Moreover, in Ontario, doctors practice in a single-payer, publicly funded healthcare system, which is structured around patient-centered care. In the case of conflict, the interests of the patients come first, and the physicians have a duty not to abandon their patients. These doctors are already allowed to not provide a service they're employed to give. If they can't even work in a system where other professionals around them are offering fully legal services, it might just be time to take up a new profession.
Dying with Dignity, which is an organization, maintain patients seeking to be killed by a doctor should not have to bear the burden of managing the consequences of physicians' religious objections.
Yes. What you want to do for people who are in a situation so dire that they prefer dying to remaining alive, you want to force them to endure their suffering even longer, as you not only don't help them, but you refuse to even point them toward help.
All right, Unplanned film banned in Canada for its life-affirming content.
Canada again. My country's messing up everything. But my previous career was in the movie industry, so I'm excited to hear what's happening.
You need to be a little careful with the headline here. Technically, It hasn't been banned, but rather the largest companies that distribute the movies, or the ones that decide what goes in the theaters, they're refusing to show it.
Okay, well that is an important distinction. Film distribution companies can handle only so many movies per year, so the competition to get a distribution contract is fierce. This would be like saying you're banned from the NBA just because no NBA agents would sign you, or saying you're banned from the radio because you don't have a recording contract. I mean, there are movies that win awards at Sundance or Toronto Film Festival, and they never get distribution. That's just the way the industry is. The distribution companies don't actually decide what the theaters end up showing. The theater owners make the deals for what they want. The theaters aren't equipped to cut individual deals with individual filmmakers. It's easiest just to deal with a handful of distributors.
It's effectively banned.
So they said that they don't want to distribute it, they don't want to show it, not because they don't think people would come see it, but because of the content.
The article source for this claim is the film's writer and director, not the distribution company themselves. When someone's rejecting you, be it for a date, an audition, or a job interview, you don't really know if the reason they're giving you is accurate. This is the "it's not me, it's you" of movie distribution. And frankly, I'm skeptical of the director's even telling the truth about the reasons he was given. true or not.
It's a movie about a lady who was employed at Planned Parenthood.
The trouble is that Abby Johnson, the woman whose memoirs serve as the basis for the film, is a controversial figure whose life details can't be corroborated. Texas Monthly has been following her for over a decade, citing detail after detail that is contradicted by evidence, including a lot of the vital patient details in the movie's pivotal scene where she becomes horrified. I leave this as homework for you, but suffice to say the truth level in this so-called true story should not be taken for granted.
Here, Cineplex apparently is the largest distributor, and there's some others, Landmark and Mongrel Media.
In Canada.
In Canada.
This is what strikes me that the article doesn't know what it's talking about. Cineplex and Landmark are theater chains. They are exhibitors, not distributors. No one who knows anything about the film industry would confuse these two things.
And it says they wouldn't show it because of content. I'll guarantee they show all sorts of R-rated pornographic movies.
Of course, I'm certain that there are many R-rated movies that Ken would consider pornographic. I'm equally certain there are PG-rated films that Ken would consider pornographic. This may be too subjective an argument to actually address.
Oh, yeah, they do. I actually looked up a little bit on this stuff. I actually checked with our IT guy. Hey, I'm going to be doing some porn statistics. Don't block me on here.
How many times a week do you suppose Bodie makes that call to IT? Of course, Mr. Hodge. Research.
Canada's largest distributor here, Mongrel Media.
I'm not familiar with them. Mongrel Media may or may not be the largest Canadian-owned distributor, but the largest distributors in Canada are the same as the largest distributors in the US. Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, Sony, etc. In terms of movies, Canada is actually considered part of the U.S.
They're involved in porn films that I've seen, and not that I've seen, but that I saw on the statistics, where they've done this kind of thing. I just want to make sure we're clear on this.
And it's not the best slip when your father-in-law is on the panel.
Well, and Abby Johnson herself said, I have to wonder what they're afraid of.
Again, I leave this as homework for you, but it sure seems like Abby Johnson is the one who's become afraid of the truth these days. If you're at all interested in this film, but also enjoy the sound of your own laughter, please allow me to recommend the extended review from the crew of God Awful Movies, which I will link in the description.
If you ever watched people harassing rape victims at an abortion clinic and been confused as to who is the bad guy, you will love this movie.
At one point, I knocked on the wall under the projector booth trying to get the projector person to come down and apologize and explain the hate crime they were abetting. I'm so mad.
Oh, God.
It will be out on DVD for all you Canadians, so you'll get to see it.
If pornography is the force that drives new media formats to take off, I swear that creationists are the ones that keep them alive. The world's dominant Blu-ray player manufacturer, Samsung, announced that they've completely abandoned Blu-ray because sale of Blu-ray discs has dropped to next to nothing in the last few years. But here we've got AIG's audience still pumped about a DVD.
And then I think somebody makes a really good statement. Come, Lord Jesus, come.
Oh, yeah. Come, Jesus. Come.
Amen. I'm going to say amen to that. That's for sure. Well, we are out of time for today.
Why couldn't you have said that just a minute earlier, Georgia? Even just a minute would have done it. Thank you to James Snow, aka Mr. Atheist, as well as the lovely Shannon Q for lending their insight and wisdom today. If for some strange reason you're not already subscribed to them, please tap on the circles to fix that. And if you're new to Paulogia, welcome. Tap on my face so you can be notified for new science, theology, and news videos. As always, huge thank you to all my patrons whose support make this work possible. And we'll see you in the next video.